Thank you, Paras Bhai. Thank you, Abhishek, and the entire team of Chamber of Tax Consultants for taking such a wonderful initiative, even at this time when everybody is passing through tough times, a time of monotony. So to convert the monotony into an opportunity of enriching ourselves, you have taken up a very good cause. I salute you and congratulate you for taking up this task even during these moments. Friends, as you know, since last few years, our government has made great emphasis on cleaning of the economy and streamlining it. And to achieve this target, it has been found that the tax laws alone are not sufficient. So therefore, other laws dealing with economic offenses have been either freshly introduced or have been reintroduced, such as Benami law, such as reinforcement of PMLA, such as making suitable amendments in the Companies Act so that the requisite powers could be given to serious fraud investigation office to take care of the frauds arising in the corporates, such as bringing out NCLT and the laws dealing with that, that is IBC, and such as bringing out Black Money Act, such as toning up provisions of FEMA, and so forth and so on. For example, BUDS, for example, FIEO, Fugitive Economic Offenders Ordinance, etc., etc. So, if we make the combined reading of all these laws, one thing which becomes writ large on the face of it and gives clear intention of the government that every citizen is expected to behave in a proper manner, to carry on his fiscal affairs and all other affairs in a manner which is acceptable to law as well as to the society. So one of the prominent subject which has been brought out, which is greatly impacting the citizens from various angles, is Benami law. You would wonder that why I am saying that it is impacting the most, because it is affecting everybody, each and everybody, in his personal capacity, in his professional capacity. When I say everybody, everybody means whether it is a person of he's a person of from rural background or urban background, or from service class, or from bureaucracy, is in public service or politics, or in private service, he's in business or not in business. He can be anybody. So when the law is affecting to such a great extent, we must know that what the law says. Though the law is not yet evolved, there are many questions which are more than the possible answers available before us. But still, during this last 2 3 years, some sense could be gathered that how this law is being implemented. So we should get ourselves ready to so as to implement this, so as to understand this law, and so as to help the needy people, that is our clients, whose legal defense, whose legal protection is one of the roles which we as a chartered accountant or as a tax lawyer or as a lawyer take in our hands. Friends, the other important thing which I would like to share with you is that this subject is very difficult to understand from the sense. I'm not saying the subject itself is complex, but it is difficult to understand from the subject that the subject is so brief, the act is so brief, and there are no clear parameters available or not much guidance available in terms of jurisprudence which is developed from the court judgments. Unlike Income Tax Act, where the law is already well developed, and since the law is well developed because of the court judgments, we can visualize any possible interpretation arising in any complex situation arising before us. But that is not the privilege which we have here. Since we do not have the privilege here, so therefore we have to either fall back upon some historical background evolution of the law, or we have to go through the judgments which have been rendered in context of the other laws, which though may or may not be acceptable to the authorities. So this whole subject, this whole approach can be divided into two parts: historical background, and of course understanding the judgments delivered in context of other laws, or some of the judgments only which has been rendered in context of Benami law straight away. Friends, since it will be difficult and little, I would say, tiring to understand the whole subject in one go. So I'm grateful that CTC has given its platform to give me an opportunity to explain this subject in two parts, to deliver, to convey my thoughts in a manner that I can divide it into two parts. One part today I will be taking up mostly the fundamentals or the issues which are arising from the various fundamental questions which we face. And the secondly, then the second part, which we'll be taking up probably on 9th, if I'm not correct, 9th, same time, then we will be taking up practical aspects which we are facing, or complex issues which we are arising, which are arising, or some other issues which we are apprehending that these may arise. So let us, in today's session, let us try to confine it to the fundamental aspects so that we are able to cover it within the stipulated time that has been provided before us today. So friends, as far as fundamentals is concerned, few fundamental questions are arising. For example, the first question is whether this law will be applicable from retrospective date or it will be applicable from prospective date. Then the second question which is arising before us is that whether this law is applicable on immovable properties or this is applicable on movable properties as well. Next, whether this law demands any mens rea. What I am trying to say is whether to rope in and attract this law and to make a person suffer with the consequences under this law, that of attachment or prosecution, whether it is necessary that the alleged Benami transaction has been done by him with some malignant intention, or this law will have its course even if by mistake the transaction has been done, which is literally speaking Benami within the literal interpretation of this law. And whether there is any threshold limit or it is applicable even from property of any value. If the tax has been paid on a particular transaction with regard to acquisition of a property, whether the same property or transaction can be robbed in within the provisions of Benami law also, though the tax has already been paid. I mean, whether multiple application of these two laws or any other law with that is possible. Then friends, whether any U-turn is allowed. So forth and so on. Many questions are arising. Whether there is any protection available to a bona fide purchaser. So what about the future time limit? So similarly, many questions are arising. And surprisingly or shockingly, I would say, believe me, the most of the questions which you would visualize, the answers which you would visualize, the correct answers would be, as on date correct answers would be just reverse of that. So therefore, we have to understand and read the law verbatim as it is before we make our own interpretations. What the law in the purest literal sense says as it is. So let us understand it from many angles. Then only we will go to the many other possible interpretations as the complex situations will arise before us. So as I said, the first question, let me take up all these questions which I have put before you one by one, and I will try to answer most of the issues which I have raised and few other issues also if possible in today's session at least. So friends, the first question which I put before you was that whether this law is applicable retrospective and what is the future time limit available to authorities to apply this law. To understand the retrospectivity aspect, it is necessary to share with you the evolutionary background, how this law has evolved in our country. Friends, one thing I would share that I have traveled in many countries with regard to understanding the legal jurisprudence of some of the countries. I am also a member of International Association of Tax Judges, and many judges of few countries, around 40-50 countries, gather at one place, any place in the world, and annually, and then they discuss that how the tax legislation is being held in the different parts of the country, how the judges are dealing with it. So one thing I asked from them that whether anything similar to Benami law in India, anything like that has been introduced in any of the countries. They did not understand what do I mean by Benami. Then I explained them that Benami means this and that. So then they said, no, nothing like that. But only one thing which was close to it was antitrust law kind of thing. So no specific law as such has been introduced anywhere in the world to my mind. Maybe something is maybe beyond my knowledge. So we are first I think, in the world to introduce such kind of law in this format, that too in this format. So with this, I will share with you little evolutionary background. The Benami word is word from Persian. So that means the Benami transactions were happening in our country when the Persian language was vogue in our country. And Persian language was vogue in our country when Mughal rule was there in our country. So that means Benami transactions were happening since then. Friends, I would share with you, not only then, rather when the British rule was there, Benami transactions were happening even at that time, which will be evident from this fact, as you will see notes from the slide which is open before you. Section 82 of Indian Trust Act 1882. So this act was legislated in 1882. So when this act was legislated, and let's see this 1 second, yeah. So this act, when the Trust Act was legislated, few sections pertain to the Benami transactions. As you will read, I will read it for you. Where property, section 82, where property is transferred to one person for consideration paid or provided by another person, and it appears that such person did not intend to pay or provide such consideration for the benefit of the transferee, the transfer must hold the property for the benefit of the person paying or providing for the consideration. Where the owner of the section 81 says, where the owner of the property transfers bequeaths it cannot be consistently with the attendant circumstances that he intended to dispose of the beneficial interest therein, the transferee or the legatee must hold such property for the benefit of the owner or his legal representative. Similarly, section 94 is also there. So what does this section says, or what do all the three sections are saying? Actually, these three sections are saying only one thing, that in case a person is willing to transfer the property in favor of other person, but without any intention of making any transfer of ownership rights therein, or legal rights therein, or beneficial rights therein, then the law will protect such an intention, and it will protect the beneficial right with the original owner only. Meaning thereby, the law in a way permitted a person to do transaction in somebody else's name without losing the full control. In other words, it allows Benami transactions. It allows Benami transactions. So similarly, not only Indian Trust Act, Civil Procedure Code, section 66 also says something similar. Then our own Income Tax Act, section 281A of Income Tax Act 1961, not 1922. I'll read it before you. It also said something similar. It read that effect of failure to furnish information in respect of properties held Benami. It says no suit to enforce any right in respect of any property held Benami, whether against the person in whose name the property is held or against any other person, shall be instituted in any court by or on behalf of person claiming to be the real owner of such property, unless the notice in the prescribed form and containing the prescribed particulars in respect of property has been given by the claimant within a period of 1 year from the date of acquisition of the property to the Chief Commissioner or Commissioner. So friends, what does it, this slide is saying? That the only embargo was, as per Income Tax Act, coming in way of doing the Benami transaction was to give information to the Commissioner or Chief Commissioner only, jurisdictional or Chief Commissioner. In a way, the Income Tax Act also allowed doing Benami transaction with the only requirement of giving an information to the Commissioner or Chief Commissioner. In other words, what Income Tax Act expected was that you maintain transparency, and then you, even if you need to do Benami transaction, you can do. So friends, meaning thereby, the law has so far endorsed or permitted doing Benami transaction. Then the immediately next question arises, then what happened and how? That now the government is saying, now the new law is saying Benami transactions are not prohibited. And since when it has happened. So to explain my thoughts in this regard, I will have to take you to the evolutionary background since 1969. Its origin lies in 1969, when for the first time the Law Commission gave its report, when the Standing Committee on Finance of the Parliament gave its report, received the reports from many parts of the country that Benami transactions are happening and which are creating trouble in the economy. So an assignment was given to the Law Commission, and this mandate was given that Law Commission should find out what should be done about the Benami transactions. So Law Commission for the first time in 1974. That's after 5 years from 1969. So it took around 5 years, and it came out with its report, and it opined that yes, Benami transactions happening and they are creating trouble. And the first reason is not tax evasion, but the first reason is violation of certain civil laws. When I talk civil laws, it means the laws which had been brought out to bring out reforms, land reforms in the country. If you remember, immediately after independence, many states adopted land reforms laws to eradicate feudal system from the society. That is to redistribute the land from the few landowners to the many landless laborers. So like ALSRA, Urban Land Ceiling Act, many land reforms act like Maharashtra Land Reforms Act, Chhattisgarh Maharashtra MP Land Reforms Act, Himachal Pradesh Tenancy Act, Rajasthan Land Reforms Act, and many states adopted such kind of laws. So people were buying land in other names to violate these laws, and the so-called mission of the government to eradicate feudal system was not getting achieved. So therefore, something must be done. The Benami transactions should be prohibited. That such kind of opinion was expressed by the then Law Commission, that is in 1974. But despite that, nothing happened till 1988, when suddenly for the first time on 19th May 1988, an ordinance is brought out in the name of Benami Transaction Prohibition Ordinance 1988, which became Act on 5th September 1988. And this was a small act. So the original lies of the Benami law with regard to Benami in 1988. So friends, you must be asking and thinking that if since law was already there, so then why it was not implemented, or why there is a hero crime now? Because sir, the law remained in inactive mode. And why it happened so, for that I will have to deal with some of the important sections. This is essential. This is very, very important to understand the concept of retrospectivity involved here. I will read 3 or 4 sections of the original 1988 Act. The Benami Prohibition Act 1988, Section 1(3). The provisions of Section 3, 5 and 8 shall come into force at once, and the remaining provisions of this Act shall be deemed to have come into force on 19th May 1988. So at once means when it became Act. So Section 3, 5 and 8 came into force when it became Act, meaning thereby on 5th September 1988. And remaining means remaining 6 provisions, total 9 sections were there. So remaining 6 provisions were deemed to have come into force on 19th May 1988. Then Section 2A read Benami transaction as, Benami transaction means any transaction in which property is transferred to one person for a consideration paid or provided by another person. So it looks to be very short definition. It is very short definition, and looks to be quite sweet, but and under prohibitory law, it is not necessary that all shorter definitions prove to be sweet also. And that is what happened with this definition, because under this definition, even unintended situations were also covered. Like if a banker would sell, if banker will give loan to a person to enable him to buy property, but the banker would make payment of the loan directly, disburse the payment of the loan directly to a seller of the property. In that case, literally speaking, this definition will be treated as Benami transaction, which is not the intention. And it will further be evident that this definition is incomplete from the fact that now the definition has some more conditions. So the definition at that time was probably incomplete. Then Section 3, no person shall enter into any Benami transaction. So the law was very clear. No means no. No person shall enter into any Benami transaction. Then it says nothing in subsection 1 shall apply to the purchase of property by any person in the name of his wife or unmarried daughter, it shall be presumed, unless the contrary is proved. So meaning thereby, no person shall enter into Benami transaction. The law was absolutely clear that no person shall enter into Benami transaction, meaning thereby, it did not provide any ifs or buts. It simply said no means no. No person shall enter into any Benami transaction. Only 2 exceptions, wife or unmarried daughter. No relief to any poor husband. And with regard to what to say of son, daughter also only unmarried, as if after marriage the daughter will not be daughter anymore. Whatever might have been the reason, only those 2 exceptions. So except these 2 exceptions, no Benami transactions at all. Then Section 3 read, whoever enters into any Benami transaction shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years or fine or with both. So friends, the imprisonment was, punishment was also there, and definition was also there, prohibition was also there. So then why this law was not implemented in its fullest sense? It is maybe because of the reason of section 5, because entire buck stopped here at section 5. It says all properties held benami shall be subject to acquisition by such authority in such manner and after following such procedure as may be prescribed. So actually no such procedure was prescribed, no acquisition authorities were created, no appellate authorities were created, no redressal mechanism, grievance redressal mechanism was created. So the law remained in an inactive mode since no enforcement agencies were even created. So you can say it remained like a paper tiger, a lifeless tiger, in which which was put on the doorsteps of some of the people who have unknowingly done Benami transactions. And so the moment they came out in 2016, the life was infused in that tiger. And when Amendment Act 2016 came into force with effect from 1/11/2016. So the Benami law has been amended in the same manner as Income Tax Act is amended every year. That Amendment Act comes by way of Finance Act, which contains new sections, which contains amendment to the old sections, and these are inserted into the original Act of 1961, Income Tax Act 1961. Similarly, here also Amendment Act of 2016 contains new sections which will be inserted in the original Act. But the only difference here is, rather only no, major difference is the major difference is that under Income Tax Act, the amendments are smaller and Act is larger. Here, original sections are 9 and the new amendments contain around 74 sections. So this question was asked from the then Honorable Finance Minister that, sir, that is late Shri Arun Jaitley sir, that sir, kindly, this question was asked on the floor of the House, that what is the reason behind it. So it could, the earlier law could have been repealed and new law could have been brought. So he was quite witty and in his conversation, and very smartly he replied that yes, you may say that it is like inserting large ship into small boat, that but there is a sound reasoning with the government for not repealing the old law, and the reasoning is that we do not want to give immunity to the people who have done Benami transaction in last 28 years. So last 28 means 2016 minus 1988. So that is how he says that this transactions covered in earlier will also be covered. So that is what Honorable Finance Minister said on the floor of the House. But our courts may not take it as conclusive evidence of making it retrospective. The law has to be read as it is to convey whether it is retrospective, and even if it is retrospective, whether it is within the framework of the Constitution, etc., etc. These are the questions which are arising in our mind. So let us read how the law has been drafted. So some of the sections which remain as it is one of them is section 1(3), which creates retrospective effect. Normally every act has one commencement section, but here it is different because of the reason that here the commencement is bifurcated into two parts. If you would kindly see, the commencement is into two parts in the sense that 3 sections come into force from at once and remaining sections come into force from 19th May 1988. So Income Tax Act commences in absolute from one particular date, that is 1st April 1961. Here, unfortunately, it is truncated, bifurcated, and which is creating the whole lot of confusion. So friends, let me read this section and let us see what kind of, I would say, absurd situation this section is creating. The provisions of section 3, 5, and 8 shall come into force at once. So if I read 3, 5, and 8 shall come into force at once means what? Wherever I have made presentation so far, the country, House has already been divided. There is no single opinion which came. So some people say at once means now when the law has been amended, because section 3, 5, and 8 has been amended. Rather, I would say section 8 is totally changed. It is a new section altogether. So some of the people would say that at once means now when it has been amended. But the other school of thought would say that no, sir, at once means when this section was introduced. This section was introduced way back with effect from 5th September 1988. So at once means 5th September 1988. So this section should be read with effect from 5th September 1988. Now the controversy will become more large when we read the remaining half. And when we read the remaining half, it reads that, and the remaining provisions of this act shall be deemed to have come into force on the 19th May 1988. Now, remaining means what? Remaining means 9 minus 3, that is 9 original sections which were there in original 1988 Act, or remaining means 74, that is the current sections, minus 3. So whether 71 sections or only 6 sections shall be deemed to come into force on 19th May 1988. Again, you will ponder over, you will find that no single opinion come. Most of the cases, House was always divided, and House will remain divided as it is until some clarity comes from the court of law or from our own parliament. So for the time being, if as a seasoned lawyer, let us presume, if as a seasoned lawyer, if we argue this issue before any competent court of law, and let us be optimistic for a moment, the court agrees with us, yes, this is creating an absurd situation. So court suppose fortunately says, okay, Mr. Taneja, let us read section 1.3 OTOs qua new law. We will read it qua old law only. Then our next question is whether still there is anything which makes this law still retrospective. So that is the burning question which is arising in our mind. So for that, I will take you to the present law, how it has been drafted, and whether there is still anything which makes it specifically retrospective. Benami transactions has been defined in section 2.9. This, I salute to the person who has drafted this law, because it is so fabulously and fantastically, I would say it has been crafted like a piece of art. The definition itself contains 4 parts, part A, part B, part C, part D. And any real life situation you imagine, it is already taken care of in the part. So kindly see, with regard to 4 parts, the first part, beginning of the first part itself is quite sweeping, which will be evident from the fact that the first expression is beginning with a transaction or arrangement. So somebody might say, sir, I have not done any transaction. So immediately the answer would be, okay, you may not have done any transaction as such, but did you do any such arrangement? So if you have done any such arrangement, you cannot speak. You have to read further. So it says where a property is transferred to. Where a property is transferred to. Property is transferred to or is held by a person, and the consideration for such property has been provided or paid by another person. Now kindly see how many commas are there. Where a property is transferred to, comma, or is held by, comma, a person, comma, and consideration for such property has been provided, comma, or paid by, comma, another person, comma, again. So they thought, why to be miser on comma, have comma after comma? Because somebody in USA was fined for improper use of comma. So that is why legislators thought, let us have comma after comma. And believe me, this is the magic of this comma only, which is playing the entire game over here. And you see, it says where a property is transferred to. So if we are optimistic that section 1.3 will not be applicable on new law, so then that means where a property is transferred to. Where a property is transferred to, or that is date of transfer has to be after 1/11/2016. All right, because we are optimistic that 1.3 will not come in our way, or is held by. So, or is held by means it should be held as on date. That is on the date when the initiating officer, that is the enforcement officer, taking action under this law. All right, held by, that is held as on date. But held since when? Yeah, here lies the magic. That is not mentioned here. So somebody would say, sir, held even any time prior to even 2016. Somebody says, okay, sir, held any time after since 1988. And somebody may say, no, 1988. It could be since time immemorial, because there is no time limit prescribed. So if a person is holding it today, that would simply mean that the property is covered within this definition. I will explain you with the help of an example. Suppose today the law is made that from 1st September 2020, nobody will be holding gun in his personal possession or at his house. Now, suppose a person is caught in December 2020 with a gun in his hand, and he wants to take a pleading that, sir, this law was made in April 2020, but I was holding this gun since 2015. So therefore, this law is no more applicable upon me. Then you would probably not agree with it with his pleading. No, since law was clarified, you could have got rid of a gun. So therefore, from 1st September 2020, you are not supposed to have gun with you. So similarly, the word held will play its magic over here. Though some of us would say, no, sir, there is one distinction, the example which I have given of gun example and this example, that in the gun example, the person who was holding the gun since 2015 had the opportunity of surrendering the gun or getting rid of the gun by transferring it back or in any manner, giving it back to the government in any manner. But here, where is the opportunity? So therefore, this example is misfit. But hold on before you jump to that conclusion. Because here also, if you remember, in 2016, Finance Act 2016 brought out one privilege, that Section 290 of 2016 Finance Act, that whosoever will make payment of tax on the arising on the transfer of any Benami property, then the person shall get immunity from the prosecution provisions contained in the PBT Act. Meaning thereby, the legislature was clearly indicating that if you have got any Benami property, you may please retransfer to the beneficial owner or get rid of in whatever manner you want. Now, at that time, it was very difficult to some real implications. And therefore, most of us skipped that window. So, window was given, which we did not use. That is why that logic of gun example can very well be applied here. Now, so therefore, this word held has the capacity to make it retrospective. But hold on, whether penal law can be brought from retrospective, whether in this manner earlier transactions can be roped in. Now, many questions are raising many legal opinions in this regard. Now, issues have been raised before the courts also. So far we have the benefit of 3 judgments and when still from Supreme Court. Firstly, the judgment was from Honorable Rajasthan High Court in Niharika Jain's case, whereby the Honorable Rajasthan High Court has held that this law is no more, is not at all retrospective. But the judgment of Honorable Rajasthan High Court, with all due respects, did not deal with Section 1.3, did not deal with the word held here. Then second judgment came from Honorable Justice Koshi from Chhattisgarh High Court, where Honorable Justice did not agree with the view of Honorable Rajasthan High Court, and it was held in the judgment in the case of Tulsi Ram something that yes, it is retrospective. Earlier transactions will also be roped in. The third judgment came from Honorable Kolkata High Court in Calcutta High Court in the case of Ganesh Dealcom, and in that judgment, Honorable Calcutta High Court has held that this law cannot be retrospective. Though, in my respectful opinion, that judgment also did not deal with Section 1.3 or the word held properly in the context which is required here. Then, the matter of Ganesh Dealcom has been carried by the department before the Honorable Supreme Court by way of SLP, and Honorable Supreme Court has admitted SLP, and the judgment has been stayed. So that part has been stayed. So therefore, the matter is pending before the Honorable Supreme Court. We do not have any right to make any comment upon that. So as on date, the law is being applied by the authorities in full-fledged retrospective manner. Whosoever is holding Benami property, if it is Benami and if it comes to the notice of the officers, the notice under Section 24(1), etc., are being issued regularly and consistently. Now, leaving it at that stage, let me read further. So the first condition is where the property is transferred to or is held by a person and the consideration for such property has been provided or paid by another person. Then thereafter comes the word and. And sir, this end is a major oxygen cylinder. I would say this is the only oxygen cylinder which is available in the Act, which provides some rescue measures. Because when it is, the definition is ending with the word and in between, so that means the other condition has to be also read. So we have to make conjunctive reading. So other condition has also to be complied with. Only then this definition will be complete. So the other condition is the property is held for the immediate or future benefit, direct or indirect, of the person who has made the consideration. So meaning that the benefit test should also be fulfilled. In case benefit test is not fulfilled, the property is cannot be held to be Benami. So both the conditions have to be cumulatively fulfilled. Now, I will try to explain my thoughts on what do they mean by the benefit test. Suppose I have a car and I give it to my driver and I tell him, ki, look, Mr. Chauffeur, my driver, you keep this car, get it registered in your name and keep it with you. Be happy, enjoy. So can we say the property which we will be holding in his name, registered in his name, can be said to be Benami? In my respectful opinion, no, because benefit test is not complied here. Now, in the same kind of situation, if I change the facts a little bit, if I tell him, ki, okay, Mr. Driver, keep the car, get it registered in your name, whenever I need it, bring it for me or my family or my friends, for whomsoever I will tell it so, in that case, the requisites of benefit test are also complied with. This is an acid test. This litmus, we can also call it as litmus test. So once this test is complied, only then the classic part of definition of Benami transaction is fulfilled. Then that takes us to the next part, that is part B. A transaction or an arrangement in respect of a property carried out or made in a fictitious name. Then part C. Now, before I come to part C, friends, kindly see anything which is done in fictitious name. Now, this word has been used in the legislature for the first time in date. I have not read this word anywhere in any other statute. So, probably the intention of the legislature is to cover up those transactions which are not held in the name of the natural persons, persons who are defined or accepted as persons under law, especially this law. So if a person is keeping the property in the name of his pets, in the name of its deity, goddess, indeed, then it will be covered within the definition of fictitious here. And so it will be hit under clause B. It will straight away become Benami transaction and subject to consequences under this act, which we will be shortly dealing. Then clause C, a transaction or agreement in respect of property where the owner of the property is not aware of or denies knowledge of such ownership. So friends, part C is very dangerous. It may look to be very serious, very simple, but believe me, it is very, very serious, because at the time of search or at many other occasions, if unknowingly, innocuously, a person denies the knowledge about the ownership of any asset which is found, then this clause hits in very hard manner. It hits actually below the belt. So it is necessary that those who are in the ownership of the assets, they should be properly aware about the ownership, and they must disclose such facts of the ownership as and when required to avoid attraction of clause C upon them. Clause D, a transaction or arrangement in respect of a property where the person providing the consideration is not traceable or is fictitious. So under clause D, those transactions where a person is not able to provide that from where the property has come. The consideration, if it does not disclose about the person who is provided the consideration, then that property can also be treated as Benami property. Now you may wonder with regard to this clause that whether this kind of situation is covered in income tax law or here under Benami law. So I will explain with the help of an example. And this was first case of the country which happened from Pune. It was done by Benami Prohibition Unit of Pune, wherein the cash was seized, which was found in the cash which was traveling from Mumbai to Pune. So this cash was attached invoking clause D. In fact, if I will try to explain with the help of some examples, suppose a person is found with the cash or any property, and if he says, yes, it is my cash, it is my property, then clause D is not affected. If the details of consideration is not, he is not able to provide, then he can be made liable for addition under section 69 of Income Tax Act, but clause D should not be applied inside that case. But suppose if that person says, yes, this is the asset with me, but I am not able to tell you the consideration who has provided. I have not provided for the consideration for this. I have not used my funds. Somebody else has provided. Then of course, clause D can be applied. Suppose now, third example, if he says, okay, Mr. X has paid for the concession, and so long as there is existence is proved of Mr. X and the confirmation is given that yes, Mr. X has paid for the consideration, then friends, in that case also, clause D cannot be applied. At the best, if X has confirmed the transaction, accepted that he has paid for, then whatever consequences under the income tax law may take place upon Mr. X or upon this person, that will be a different thing. But and in that scenario, clause D cannot be applied to hold such transaction as Benami transaction. Exceptions. So friends, if any case falls in any of the parts, that is the parts which I read before you, part A, B, or C, or D, then it is going to be Benami. There are no ifs and buts. There is no scope of intention, etc., etc. The only scope of saving is these 5 clauses. Except these 5 clauses, there is nothing at all which can save any transaction from not being declared as Benami transaction. The first clause, property held by Karta or member of HUF for his benefit or benefit of other members in the family. Very straight and simple. So they have given relief to the HUF. Now, second, property held by a person standing in the fiduciary capacity for the benefit of another person and includes trustee, executors, partners, debtors. So this is a clause where fiduciary capacity means fiduciary capacity which is defined here as fiduciary capacity, or any other capacity which may not be given here as fiduciary capacity, but which is actually recognized under the law as fiduciary capacity will be also covered here, because Indian Trust Act section 88 recognizes fiduciary capacity, but that has not been repealed. Yes, I forgot to mention one thing. All the sections which I read before you, that is section 81, 82, and 94 of Indian Trust Act and section 281A of Income Tax Act, all of them were repealed in 1988 when the old Benami Act was brought on the picture. So the law is no more endorsing any Benami transaction. Yes, section 88 of Indian Trust Act, which talks about fiduciary capacity, buying the property in fiduciary capacity, allows it under the law. That remains on the forum. So that means Benami law will still recognize properties bought under fiduciary capacity. Now, property held in the name of spouse or in the name of any child. Now, spouse means what? Spouse means his or her spouse, because some confusion was arising by some person, and then I had to give a clarification that this slide has been made interesting for you. Now here the spouse means his or her spouse only, or in the name of any child. Any child, the definition is to be adopted from Indian Succession Act. So that means any child of any age will be covered here. So only exception is when the property is purchased in the name of spouse or in the name of any child. Then the next is property held as joint owner in the name of brother, sister, lineal ascendant, or descendant. So friends, I have seen many cases wherein the people have been caught unknowingly doing Benami transaction, buying the property in the name of, say, mother or father or brother or sister, when they did not acquire the ownership as joint ownership, but also bought the property in the name of any of these persons and showed them as owned in their balance sheet or somewhere else. Then that transaction will be treated as Benami property. It does not leave any scope for any bona fide aspect, etc. If it fits into the literal definition, it is going to be Benami transaction. Then, friends, lastly, the last exception is the law is protecting power of attorney cases. The only two conditions in case of power of attorney are that the contract should be registered and stamp duty should have been paid, which may not be possible in many cases before us. So therefore, the power of attorney cases are also subject to action under this law unless some suitable amendments are brought out. So friends, accept these 5 submissions, accept these 5 exceptions. If a transaction is Benami, it is Benami in whatever sense and for whatever reason the transaction has been done. Then, sir, some of the definitions I will quickly cover, which are very important. Benami property means any property which is subject matter of a property transaction and includes the proceeds from such property. Now, the word property here is very large. You can see on the slide, and that is the widest and wildest possible definition. It even includes converted properties and also includes the proceeds from the property. Then, friends, Benamidar. It means a person or a fictitious person, as the case may be, in whose name the Benami property is transferred or held, and includes a person who lends his name. So a person who is lending his name is straight away admitted to be Benami. So friends, kindly beware of this aspect, that person who says कि sir मैंने तो खाली नाम दिया था, that gentleman is straight away admitted as benami, and consequences will follow. Then beneficial owner, it means a person, whether his identity is known or not, for whose benefit the benami property is held by benamidar. So friends, I was wondering that benamidar means a person, a fictitious person, and I mean, I do not know if a person is fictitious, how he will be given the category of benamidar. Similarly, beneficial owner, if his identity is not known, he will be treated as beneficial owner. So kindly beware of these peculiar terms have been used. But if a person is beneficial owner, he will be treated as beneficial owner even if his identity is at the moment not known. Initiating officer, it means a person who will enforce the law. So he is the person of the rank of assistant commissioner or deputy commissioner. Here starts the association of chartered accountants and tax lawyers with this law, because of frequent dealing with the those who are doing practice of tax with such kind of officers. So the law enforcement responsibility has been given on the officers under the Income Tax Act. Then approving authority means is sanctioning authority who will sanction the action of the initiating officer. Then adjudging authority, in fact, will be the authority after the orders are passed by the after the initiating officer. Then the order will be, education process will be done by the adjudging authority. The adjudging authority is for the time being located in Delhi and who has pan-India jurisdiction. So the adjudging authority, which is discharging the function of PMLA, is discharging the function under Benami law also. So as on date, the authority is common with PMLA. Similarly, appellate tribunal, after the orders are passed by adjudging authority, they are appealable to the appellate tribunal, and appellate tribunal bench is also located in Delhi. For the time being, the appellate tribunal established under PMLA, SAFEMA, OFISA is discharging the function under Benami law, and there is also having pan-India jurisdiction. The bench is located at Delhi only at local. Friends, so how the procedure takes place, the initiating is reason to believe that with regard to some transactions, some transactions are benami or some properties benami, he has a kind of function. He has been authorized under the law to retrieve mode and push mode. Push means other officers have been made duty bound under the law that in case they come to notice about that they are duty bound to reveal it to the officer. So in whatever means, if he gets the information, then he has right to record this and issue notice to the beneficial owner. Apart from doing this, he has also to make provision attachment for 3. That is what makes this law meaning thereby this law because of the fact that the attachment itself. Because in the law, the attachment itself is on the fact end. That is maybe the but proceedings begin. So the IU is given within days period if he is able to he will be asked questions, and the notices have been issued. They will be giving a response that whether this is a dynamic or not, how. So yes,
there is some disturbance in the noise. If you can just
the noise, there is no noise coming from my side.
Yes, now it is coming perfect.
Yeah, but there is no. Can you please switch off the fan? But it has started coming now only, or it has coming earlier also?
No, it seems there is some range problem.
Range
now it is
problem.
coming proper.
Now it's coming proper. Okay.
I say it was just 2 minutes earlier.
Okay.
Not even 2 minutes. 1 minute earlier.
It is fine now, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, you can continue.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
sir.
now,
sir, one more thing. There are few questions which have come online, and there are some hands which have raised. I think they may want to ask a question. Would you want to take it on the go, or you want to continue and then we may take it at the end?
Let me pick up all the questions at 7, around 7 or 7:05.
Okay, okay,
Oh.
okay.
So
Will
should I
take
cover
questions at
prosecution part
7:10?
also?
7:10 we can take questions.
At 7:10.
Yes.
Yeah, you may
Okay.
continue then. Okay, you may
Okay.
continue.
So at 7:10, I'll be taking the questions. So 15 minutes more, I will be covering up some of the important slides.
Yes.
Then we will be taking up questions, and the practical aspects we will be taking up on the next time.
Yes.
So
Okay, okay, fair enough.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
So this 90 days period is very crucial, friends. Now, the 90 days period is similar and akin to the period when we attend assessment proceedings before the assessing officer. But believe me, this may look to be similar with the assessment proceedings, but the difference is huge. There is nothing common between Benami law and income tax law. The only one thing common is that the enforcement agency is income tax department, except that the whole fabric of the law is totally different. Totally different. Under the Benami law, the concept of burden is different than income tax law. That the concept of burden we will understand when we will take up the most complex issues or fundamental questions, maybe next time, or if the time allows, this time only. So keeping in view that burden of concept, which is distinct and distinguished from the one which is there under income tax law, the legal responsibility is to attend these proceedings during the course of this 90 days period. Meaning thereby what I'm trying to say that during this 90 days period, please do not do anything in such a fashion that his burden you adopt, or that burden which he should discharge, you become busy in discharging the same. So after following the proper procedure, after the end of the 90 days period, in case the initiating officer finds that this is not a Benami property, then he will release the provisional attachment order, then the proceedings will come to an end. But if he is of the opinion that yes, this is Benami property, then he will continue the provisional attachment order till the period of passing of order by the urging authority, and thereafter within 15 days he will pass a reference order, which is called reference under section 24(5) of the PPPT Act, which will be forwarded with the entire material to the adjudicating authority at Delhi. And then the main adjudication will take place before the adjudicating authority here at Delhi, because it was the briefly proceedings which were done by the initiating officer. He has prima facie made attachment, prima facie held that this is a Benami transaction or a Benami property. Then the matter comes within the court of the adjudicating authority, as will be clear from the slides also. Now, hearing is done under section 26 by the adjudicating authority. It is a court-like hearing. 2 members sit. One is member law, other will be member technical or member finance, etc. And 1 year time is given to the adjudicating authority. All the persons, that is Jamidar, beneficial owner, or any other interested parties such as banking company, etc., or any other person who has made a claim in respect of such property, have been allowed by the law to make their appearances, to put their cases with their replies. And so after 1 year period, the adjudicating authority will decide whether this is a Benami property or not. If it is not Benami, if it is, am I audible clearly? If it is not Benami, then the adjudicating authority will release the provisional attachment order. And if it is found to be Benami, then provisional attachment order will be confirmed, and will have the right to file appeal before the appellate tribunal. But what about confiscation? So will the confiscation take place immediately after that? No, thankfully no. This is where it makes it different from PMLA. Under prevention of money laundering law, that is anti-money laundering law, the moment confirmation is done by the adjudicating authority, the confiscation may take place subject to Rule 8, etc. But here, confiscation will take place only after the appeal is decided by the appellate tribunal. So meaning thereby, after the order is passed by the adjudicating authority, the aggrieved party has right to file appeal before the appellate tribunal. And appellate tribunal, as I said, is a tribunal which is located in Delhi, which is common with the PMLA tribunal. That is, PMLA tribunal is discharging the function of Benami law also. Then, sir, my next important question which arises is whether there is any permission for U-turn. As I said, in the in the beginning itself, because very 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 important कि by mistake मेरे से कोई गलती हो गई साहब तो मैं उसको ठीक कर लेता हूँ, नहीं. In this case law says no possibility of any U-turn has been allowed, no compounding etc. has been allowed, which is clear from the reading of section 6(1), which says the benamidar shall not retransfer the benami property as held by him to the beneficial owner or any other person, and if it is done so, such transaction shall be deemed to be null and void. Meaning that भाई एक बार अगर गलती हो गई तो फिर जो consequences हैं बेनामी लॉ के they would follow. So भूल के भी भूल मत करना, वो वाला जो हमारे को सीख दी जाती है वो हमें यहाँ follow करनी है friends. Then section 57 also says any transfer made after the issuance of notice under section 24 shall be ignored, notwithstanding the provisions of Transfer of Property Act 1882. So meaning thereby अगर आपने कोई प्रॉपर्टी ली है और उसमें ऑलरेडी कोई नोटिस इशू हुआ था 24(1) का, तो वो प्रॉपर्टी आपके लिए कूड़ा है. The property is rough piece of paper, it's just scrap for you. Now the next question arises कि sir, okay, when I purchased the property, then at that time there was nothing like that. There was no notice under section 24(1) which was issued. But after I purchased the property, then 24(1) is issued upon the original owners. Then what will happen? Then, sir, there is section 27 which comes into the rescue, which talks about protection to the bona fide purchasers. But that concept of bona fide purchaser is also not fully explained or defined, because it is coupled with two conditions, and that conditions are very difficult to be proved. So the two conditions are that number one, the property has been purchased by making payment of adequate consideration, and the person that is a bona fide purchaser had no knowledge of benami transactions. So the next question then arises is who will have the burden to prove fulfillment of these conditions, whether the IO has to prove or whether the noticee, that is a bona fide purchaser, has to prove. So friends, this was a very, very controversial issue. We raised this issue before the tribunal. Luckily, two judgments have been given wherein the tribunal has said, when I argued it before the tribunal, in the name of, the judgment is in the name of Virgo Township, and another judgment we got was in the name of Kavita Infrastructure. Both are available on the site of the tribunal. They authored by Honorable Justice Manmohan and Honorable Shri G.C. Mishra. And the honorable judges have very beautifully explained that under this, the burden has to be, in terms of the principle of natural justice, upon the shoulders of the IO. The IO has to prove that the person buying the property is not bona fide. Then confiscation ke baad, the property shall be deemed to be, any transfer thereafter shall be deemed to be null and void once the confiscation take place. Then friends, after that, no compensation payable by the government on acquisition or confiscation of the benami property. So anybody expecting that some compensation will be paid? No. Not only that, no claim shall lie against the central government for attachment or vacation of the attachment of the benami property. Then, sir, prosecution. So after this prosecution, we can take the question answers. Now you see, the attachment is only one consequence. The other most severe consequence is prosecution of the people who were involved in benami transactions. So this section 53 talks about three kinds of situations. Under what circumstances prosecution will take place, who are the persons whose prosecution will take place, and what will be the quantum of punishment. So firstly, earlier transactions done prior to 2016 shall be subject to the prosecution provisions of section 3 of erstwhile act, and transactions happening thereafter shall be subject to provisions of section 53. So firstly, what are the situations in which a person would be guilty of offense of benami transactions? A person shall be guilty of offense of benami transactions shall be liable to prosecution in following circumstances. Number one, where the benami transaction is done in order to defeat the provisions of any law. How many laws are there in our country? Uncountable. So it could be any law. To avoid payment of statutory dues. So just be careful. It is not talking about tax dues. It is talking about statutory dues, which could include stamp duties, octroi, house tax, etc., etc. Then lastly, to avoid payment to creditors. It does not talk about statutory creditors only. That means it will also include trade creditors. So a trade creditor can file a complaint that because of delaying his payment or avoiding his payment, a person may have done benami transactions. Then these are the persons. Following persons may be held guilty of offense of benami transaction: the benamidar, the beneficial owner, any person who abets or induces any person to enter into Benami transactions. So पहले दो लोगों को तो आप जानते हैं बखूबी, सर तीसरे से भी रूबरू हो जाइए. So any person who abets or induces any person to enter into Benami transaction. So एक जगह सर्च चल रही थी. During the course of search, it was asked that लाला जी आपने ये बेनामी ट्रांजैक्शन क्यों किया? सर मेरे सीए साहब ने कही थी. So whatever will happen of the Lalaji, but unnecessarily that poor chap, it came into trouble because of the statement. So therefore, friends, when I begin my topic, I usually say that this Benami law has brought out certain new aspects, the aspects which are, I would say, suggesting us to realign ourselves in our professional capacity, in our personal capacity. I quite often say that now we should learn how to do transactions with the clients at arm's length. At arm's length, when I say, I mean that we should not be part of the transaction. We can be advisor on the legal side, on whatever side, but we should not be party to a transaction. Because the consequences are going to be very severe now. And because the punishment under section 53 for being guilty of offense of Benami transaction for all three categories which I mentioned is 1 year to 7 years imprisonment and fine up to 25% of fair market value of property. So fair market value of property, even the person who is party to the abatement or induction. So friends, the punishment is very severe, and punishment is severe under section 54 also for furnishing false information or document, which is imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years and fine up to 10% of fair market value of property. Then earlier, this was non-cognizable and bailable, but now it is non-bailable. Non-bailable means a person will have to obtain the bail from the competent court, and it will be subject to the discretion of the court to grant the bail or otherwise. Then friends, so my dear team, Paras ji and Rahul ji and Abhishek ji, what should we do? We should now take up questions and answers, etc. Here, rest of the part we can cover when we'll cover the.
We can start with the questions.
Okay.
Sir, would you like to read the questions, or you want us to read the questions for you?
Okay, let me see. First question is, please
Q&A,
give
yes.
examples of Benami transaction, whether property held by the partnership firm in the name of partners will be Benami transaction. Actually, Paresh ji has asked this question. Paresh, if you kindly see, the fiduciary capacity clause gives the benefit that a property can be purchased in the name of the partner, but the partner should be true partner. Again, the partner himself should not be a Benami partner, because in some of the states, some people have inducted some partners in Benami transactions so that they could buy land in the name of that partner, which was not otherwise allowed. Then other question is from Mr. Paresh only. If Mr. X pays to Mr. Y property in his name and X cannot buy in his name, these transactions are duly recorded in the books of both and disclosed in their balance sheets. Whether this property purchased by Mr. Y will be Benami. If Y has bought the property for himself and the amount purchased from X, amount received from Mr. X is towards loan or gift or whatever arrangement, then it is not Benami. But if Mr. Y is keeping the property for himself only, Y is keeping the property for Mr. X and not for himself, then there is a problem, because the problem is that Mr. Y is keeping the property as a Benamidar for the benefit of Mr. X. Then there is a problem. So, and next question, Mr. Manish Dafriya, regarding exception 4, if property purchased in the name of father, brother, etc., and it is not in joint name, whether property benefit test shall not be applicable. Actually, benefit test has to be there, but again, if the person himself shows himself to be the owner, if he has purchased the property in the name of the father, and if he gives it to the father, no problem. But the problem is by committing a mistake that he will be himself somewhere showing himself to be the owner. And the moment he shows himself to the owner, that means he is beneficial owner as well. So the moment he does this exercise, it will be a Benami property. Then the name is not clear whether married daughters will be covered in exception. Now, as I said, any child. Child would include child of any age. So long as I buy a property in the name of any child, it will not be Benami. Only one thing I would like to place as a mark of caution here. The one condition is attached when I want to take benefit under these clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, except fiduciary clause. Then the other requisite condition is that the property should be purchased out of known sources, KNOWN, known. So known is the term which has been used for the first time, which is different from the word declared or disclosed. So known is something which can be described. The courts will explain its meaning in the due course. Yes. So other question is, in the year 1983, the first question is, please give examples of Benami transactions where the property held by partnership firm that I have already explained.
Sir, the one is the trust.
This on this point, if X bought property in the name of brother Y in the end, today legal heirs X are claiming possession. Look, if they are claiming possession for the reason that the property was held Benami, then they will win the suit or not. But the moment this information comes before the initiating officer, then this property will be treated as Benami. So all those controversies which were going on earlier, a lot of civil disputes were reaching in the courts. They have to do it carefully, that they may win or not, what will happen, but the property will become immediately the property of the government. So next question is whether married daughters, yes. Can the IO initiate proceedings?
Yes.
Without identifying the BO? Then in course, hearing identifies the BO and issues notice to him. But while concluding the proceedings, he says the BO is unknown. Is it possible? Look, the definition itself is saying the identity of the beneficial owner may not be known, right? But that does not mean that the IO need not even establish that the person in whose name the property is held is not the beneficially enjoying the property. So meaning thereby the minimum obligation upon the IO is that he has to prove that the person in whose name the property is held has nothing to do with the beneficial usage of the property, has got no concern, he is the namesake owner only. So to do that, usually it is required that he has to identify that, look, this somebody else is the beneficial owner. But this is not the mandatory requirement. So I have answered it. And then let us go to the next. Yes. Will the presentation be shared? Yes, it will be shared after the next session. That is on 9th. Both the presentation. I'll be making one more presentation, Mr. Chheda, Jeel Chheda. I will request the team of CTC. They are very competent and very passionate about this. They are very helpful, all of them. And wonderful people, I would say. They will definitely be sharing for the benefit of the members both the presentations. And then anonymous attendee saying retrospective or not clear. If case laws can be repeated. My dear sir or madam, whosoever, kindly see the retrospectivity is in the court before Honorable Supreme Court. Nobody is clear. Since nobody is clear, so I will not be able to tell you as on date what is to be done. I have given most possible situations which are arising under this, that whether the held world is to be interpreted how, 1.3 is to be interpreted how, but ultimately courts will have to decide. As on date, everything is being treated as retrospective. What is the sir views on applicability of Benami Act on the alleged share application money tax under section 68? Now, two things I will, Mr. Dharan, I will say. Number one, I have already written an article which has been probably published in CTC online also, that how the parallel application under section 68 and Benami law is possible. But in my next session, I will be covering up how section 68 as well as provisions of Benami law can be applied. Meaning thereby a person will be paying tax under section 68 and there may be a situation that that very asset can be treated as Benami asset also. Then what is the sir's view? Then let me go to the next. educating address at Delhi. It is at Jeevandeep Building, Connaught Place, Parliament Street, New Delhi. Please give citation again. Citation, I have quoted two judgments only. One is Virgo Township. In this name, judgment is available, and Kavita Infrastructure. And both the judgments are available on the site of the tribunal. I had given the analysis of this judgment, which should be available on ITT online also, if they have been published by them. Then what is the threshold limit regarding the value of property? Sir, there is no threshold limit. Whether the value would be cost or the present market value. The value would be the value of the value at the time when the transaction was done. So 25% will be calculated at that time. Next question. Suppose cash is kept in the safe custody with somebody. Will the cash comes under Benami law, or can it be held as Benami transaction? Very good question. And this issue is arising where search has taken place on various private safe deposit vaults. Now, if the person says it is my cash, wherefrom he may have brought it, none's business, he may be assessed under section 69, but it cannot be Benami. But if he says it is somebody else's cash, and if somebody else is not identified, then under clause D, it can be treated as Benami. If somebody else claims yes and admits yes, it is the cash given by him, then it would not be Benami. It will be again a matter of section 69 upon that other person. Then Nakul Ahuja from Delhi. Yes, Nakul, am I right? You are from Delhi, I believe. You are saying, suppose this is the question which you have asked, and that is how I have answered. Then Aparna Shiv Kumar is asking share capital issued by the company, whether invocation of both the section. This I will explain in detail during the next session, which will take place on 9th. And kindly bear with me because we cannot take everything today. And number two, many complex issues apart from this also we will be raking up over there. Then would Benamidar who has no knowledge of ownership be also liable under section 53? Now, suppose a person has no knowledge at all. Somebody has done forgery with him. He has no concern. His name has just been used without even his knowledge. Of course, nothing can be done about that person. But suppose he had lent his name and then he says, I had lent my name and thereafter I do not know anything. No, then he is Benamidar under section 2(12) and will be straight away covered and hit under that. So this law is very peculiar and special as well. Does this also include shares and DP? Yes, properties definition kindly read, quite large. Then whether the fair value under section 53 would be fair value? No, it will be value on the date of doing transaction. Then if A pays the consideration and property purchased in favor of father, is this Benami? No, sir, it is no Benami. But the issue is if A pays the consideration, then he should treat it as either loan or gift. If he pays the consideration, buys the property in the name of his father, but shows himself to be the owner, then there is a problem. In fact, before I move further, sometimes it is asked from me, sir, what is the logic of this kind of legislation? Actually, I tried to find logic of most of the questions which we are arising here and which are there in Benami law. And when I traveled back, I could travel back 5,500 years back. And when I reached there, I could get hold of one legislation and most of the logics were found in that legislation. Now, for example, अभी समय की आप सीमा की बात करते हैं साहब कि पास्ट टाइम लिमिट क्या है. अभी इसमें एक नया क्वेश्चन अराइज होता है कि साहब चलो पास्ट टाइम लिमिट लेट अस फॉरगेट अबाउट, व्हाट अबाउट द फ्यूचर टाइम लिमिट, कि अप टू व्हाट टाइम लिमिट द action can be taken by the Benami law officer. For example, if I do the transaction today, then whether I can be held up by the department within 1 year, within 5 years, within 10 years, or 2 decades, or my lifetime, or even after my lifetime. And about past, I have already explained. So मैंने कहा इसका यार logic कहाँ मिलेगा? So the logic was given there in that legislation only. That legislation's name is Srimad Bhagavad Gita, wherein it was said, समय अनंत है, ना इसका प्रारंभ है, ना अंत है, timeless. So they have made it as a timeless beauty. It has no beginning, no end. So the future time limit also no end, ना भूत ना भविष्य. अभी आप कह रहे हैं कि सर फादर के नाम से मैंने प्रॉपर्टी ले ली तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है? The problem is that when you buy the property in father's name, आपके अंदर एक पूर्ण आत्म समर्पण की भावना होनी चाहिए, पूर्ण समर्पण की भावना होनी चाहिए. आप जिस भाव से गिफ्ट दे रहे हैं, भाव से दीजिए ना गिफ्ट। आप गिफ्ट दे रहे हैं फिर अपने आप को ऑनर दिखा रहे हैं, तो ये कैसे संभव है? सो वहां उन्होंने कहा था पूर्ण समर्पण। नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज व्हाट वुड बी द इम्प्लीकेशन ऑफ immovable property held benami outside India in the name of benamidar outside India? Very good question. Considering FEMA also. Now, very good question has been asked. In fact, this question was asked from the then Honorable Finance Minister, that whether Benami law applies on the properties located outside India. Then the answer came very readily that no, for such kind of properties, we have brought out Black Money Act. So since we have brought out Black Money Act, it will take care of. So meaning thereby what? They did not say it will not apply. He simply said for that Black Money Act is there. So coming back to that, what will happen to properties located outside India? I don't think India has territorial nexus or jurisdiction to deal or attach the properties outside India as far as this law is concerned. Under PMLA, they have reciprocal arrangements. Here, no. But if the question is whether the people who are holding the property in India through international transactions, people may be outside India, that is NRIs or foreign nationals, whether this law can apply, the answer is yes, clear yes. There are many cases where non-residents who are holding property in India through their friends, they have been caught in here. So if the beans are spilled, if the facts are brought on the platter, and if the facts come on record that the person who is holding the property in India is Benamidar, then that property will be treated as Benami property, the person Benamidar here and the non-resident beneficial. Then the other one, DJ is asking. DJ is asking about, I don't know, about retrospectively, what are your thoughts, even assuming that procedural part of education retrospectively, can the substantive part like the definition of Benami transaction can be considered retrospective? Sir, very good question, and we are all grappling with this question. It should not happen like that, but the word held, the way it has been brought down, it has been made a continuing offense. So they are treating it like that. It may or may not hold good when we argue it before the court of law. We may succeed that no, sir, it is not retrospective, cannot be applied retrospectively. But as on date, they are applying retrospectively, and let us wait for the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in this regard. And Mr. Kapil Sangvi is asking, director is shown, director is purchasing agricultural land on behalf of company and shown in the books of account. No, sir, again, fiduciary capacity benefit will come to you if payment has been made by the company. If company is the real owner, director is holding only on behalf of the company in fiduciary capacity, it is not Benami. Does property continue to be provisionally attached when appeal is being heard? I understand confiscation only after appeal. Yes, absolutely right. Confiscation cannot take place unless the property is, appeal is decided by the appellate tribunal. After the appeal is decided, the confiscation proceedings will take place before the tribunal, and only thereafter the matter of confiscation will come. Ashima Sahani is asking from, does property continue to be provisionally attached when appeal is being heard? Yeah, this I have already answered. Sorry, Ashima. I hope, Ashima, you have got the answer. Then again, anonymous attendee. I don't know, बेनामी लॉ में हमारे दोस्त मित्र बेनामी बन के क्यों क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं? जो क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है ये हम प्रिज्यूम नहीं करेंगे कि उसका अपना ट्रांजैक्शन है. So openly please ask, we'll presume that you are asking for somebody else. A property purchased by X by taking loan from Y, which was repaid, it was found that Y is a bogus company with bogus loan share capital. Sir, this I will deal, sir or madam, whosoever, I will deal it in my next session, because this is a very, very complex issue. We will deal in detail. Yes. Anything? Should I continue, or rest
Yes,
of the
sir.
questions you like to take it later on? How many questions are left? Any idea?
Sir, around eight questions are there.
Okay, I will make an attempt. I'll make an attempt to quickly cover them all. Rajesh Shah Sahab, sir, your question is whether property purchased in the name of father or mother will be exempt under Benami Act. Sir, kindly be careful. If you buy property in the name of father, there is no problem so long as it is gift. But if you want to remain owner, then you have to be joint owner with your father or mother. So exception will be only when you are joint owner. Otherwise, kindly give gift. पूर्ण समर्पण कीजिए, राजेश साहब. Then are the Benami properties auctioned? Yeah, let us see in times to come how the government will be dealing, because administrator will be taking care of the property. Administrator will be the rank of the ITO from the income tax department. I think guidelines will come, and according to the guidelines, these properties will be auctioned, etc., etc. Is there a concept of part benami? Yes, there can be concept of part benami. If there are few co-owners and say one of the co-owner is holding it benami, then to that extent it will be benami. And that is what the law clearly provides. So to that extent, the government will have right under this law to make attachment of that. Ashwini sir, thank you for sparing your time for this lecture regarding section 24(1) mentioned after recording reasons. My question, like in income tax, and who is asking this? Jasmine. Yes, Jasmine, your question is very good, I believe. Like in income tax act, can initiating officer be asked to provide the reasons recorded? Very good question you're asking. Many practice in income tax law, and from your picking it there, believe me, when we are arguing these things before the income tax officers or before the initiating officer, they are saying, no, under income tax law, procedure is different, obligations are different. Here, these are different. But they themselves are picking entire reference material from the income tax proceedings. Then how can they blow hot and cold together? Number one. Number two, if there is something which is matter of principle of natural justice, that has to be alike. So this is the basic fundamental principle, that you have to provide a person with the reasons. Justice Muralidhar's judgment is very clear on this. What if the initiating officer refuses to give reasons stating this is a confidential information? Confidential is something which is prior to recording of reasons. Once the reasons are recorded, it becomes part of the public record, the record on which every noticee has right to examine. So noticee must be confronted with the reasons, with all the material which is going to be used against the noticee. If it is not done, it is violation of principle of natural justice. In my considered opinion, such kind of orders will have to be quashed by the competent courts at appropriate time. What are the remedies available in such a scenario? Of course, the remedies will not be there before the IO. Remedies will be before the adjudicating authority, or before the appellate tribunal, or before the High Court, as the opportunity will come and as the law will evolve. The law is not yet evolved so far in this. We are trying our best. Day in, day out, we are arguing these matters. Let us see when the courts will be showing their indulgence in this regard. Mr. C.S. Srinivas is asking whether the case law reference be included in presentation. I think in some of the PPTs I have included, but there are not much case laws available on this. And if the case laws will come in times to come, we'll be having more sessions, and then I will be happy to share. But I mostly upload it on either CTC online, or if some judgment comes up in ITAT online. And Rahulji and Parasji both are taking good care in helping me in uploading those judgments over there for the benefit of our members. Balaji Saab is asking if the property is in the name of person, real owner, but the consideration paid by person who are known or unknown when the transaction is, look, if that person is taken that consideration in his capacity as loan or gift or unaccounted money, whatever, this is not going to be Benami transaction. It will be subject to 69 or something like that. But if the person says, no, I do not know where from this consideration has come, etc., then clause G can be applied. So this is a tricky situation, very thin line difference, and minor facts will change the application or non-application of clause G. Camilo, Pankaj, as I requested that 68 situation, let us cover in next session. And this 69 also I will be covering up in detail next session only. And then Harshji is asking if example of Mr. X and Y above, how can it be determined, prove that Y is holding the property for his own benefit? Yeah, this is very important. The fact is, the requirement of the law is that it has to be proved. How it will be proved? It is a matter of factual appreciation. Earlier, people were wondering, no Benami transaction will be detected because this is something intangible. How the benefit test can be applied? But believe me, the information is coming to the IO, served on platter, on pull mode and push mode. So, अपने आप चल के आती है इंफॉर्मेशन आईओ की फाइल तक और बोलती है अपने मुंह से, तो इसलिए फैक्ट्स तो आ जाएंगे. इसलिए हमें लॉ को ध्यान में रखना है कि अगर बेनिफिशियल ओनर कोई और है तो देयर इज ए प्रॉब्लम. सर, whether adopted child is covered? Sir, actually, as I said, those definitions which are not given here under this law, the law itself says that refer to the allied law. और 8 acts का नाम लिया है, 8. एलाइड लॉज में, जिसमें कि इंडियन सक्सेशन एक्ट है, इंडियन ट्रस्ट एक्ट है, इनकम टैक्स है, कंपनीज एक्ट है, एक्साइज है और ऐसे हैं। अगर डेफिनेशन यहाँ नहीं है तो वहां देखनी है. So therefore the most close act will be Indian Succession Act, and I think under Indian Succession Act, if it is an adopted child is with the process of law, he becomes like a child, therefore he will be covered under the exception. Whether property is benami or not is a question of law or question of fact. Very fantastic question, coming from some XYZ, name is not clear, but I will not be giving an unclear answer. I will be giving a clear answer. A clear answer is a mixed question of fact or law. First of all, law, whether it is covered in that situation or not. No, first of all, what are the facts, whether the benefit is being given or not, if benefit is in giving, under what clause it is covered, etc. So it is a mixed question of law and fact both, and will have to be divided on case to case basis, purely on the basis of facts, and burden to prove fact in this case, under my considered opinion, will be upon the shoulders of the IO. In this regard, you can refer to the judgment of Pamela Bhardwaj and Ramneek Singh Kochar versus IO. That is the first appeal which I had filed before the appellate tribunal, and the detailed judgment has been passed by Honorable Justice Manmohan and Mr. Justice G.C. Mishra, who is member law in the tribunal, and a very detailed judgment wherein they are saying, as per the judgments of Supreme Court, the burden to prove benami is upon the person who is alleging it to be benami, that is IO in this case. Then again, anonymous attendee, may the order passed by the appellate tribunal be subject to High Court? Yes, the order will be subject to appeal in the High Court, and the mechanism appeal is given that the High Court of the jurisdiction will be where the person IO resides, or the person who has to file appeal resides or works for gain. So very peculiar situation is going to arise. Suppose there are many appellants, so many beneficial owner or many benamidar. So everybody, as per the law, will be competent to file the appeal in their respective jurisdiction. So against one order, there will be appeal before the different high courts. I do not know how they forgot to resolve this issue in the law. Then, sir, you said something known sources. Could you please throw some light? Paras, can you please note down about the known sources? We'll explain and discuss in detail. This is going to be a very, very controversial issue. What the known sources is going to be exactly like. ये ना तो disclose word use किया है, ना declared word use किया है. तो known का मतलब क्या है? इसके ऊपर हम विस्तार में चर्चा करेंगे हमारे next session में. Paresh ji, kindly bear with me on this. Then Rajesh Mundada Sahab is saying, how to know that property is subject to Benami proceedings at the time of purchase of property? Very good, sir. Very good question. Probably our government has skipped this aspect, that today if I buy a property, there is no mechanism to know whether it is Benami or not. Though somebody may say that if there is a provisional attachment order, it will be pasted on the file. But even if you do research, it may not be pasted. The provisional attachment order may be lying somewhere else, number one. Number two, today you buy the property. If tomorrow 24/1 notice is issued, what do? So let us knock on the doors of the government of India through the forum of esteemed forum of CTC, and raise the voice about the desired amendments which are needed, so that these kind of amendments are made and many people are saved from this unnecessary hardship which may be caused to them unknowingly. Then many thanks, Jasmine is saying many thanks. Thank you, Jasmine, for your keen participation here. Then Rishabh is asking, Rishabh Shah, does the fiduciary capacity exception cover only the cases especially mentioned in the Act, such as the Act, sir? Very good question. The question is whether the categories which are mentioned only will be covered as fiduciary, or others can also be included. Yes, very good question. In fact, those which are mentioned in the definition itself, exception itself, they are straight away covered. But any other fiduciary capacity which can be recognized under the law as fiduciary capacity will also be covered here. Now, what could be the fiduciary capacity under the law? I think this again requires detailed discussion, and in our next session, let us do this also. I can discuss today also, but then what will we do next session? And number one, number two, I mean, it requires deliberation. So kindly bear with me, Rishabh. And this also, I hope the team is noting on the things which we are keeping for the next session, section 68(1), then fiduciary capacity 2, and one, this known sources 3. Then if % source is explained and balance 30% cannot be recollected, still can it be part Benami? Yes. If it falls within the capacity of Benami, it is Benami. not be from explanation of source. It will be from this fact if someone else is exercising the rights of the ownership. Only then. Source explanation or no explanation, it is to be done under the income tax law. Income tax law cannot be applied here in this manner. That is to be taken care by the income tax law only. But IOs are mixing up. They are doing those things which should have been done in income tax proceedings here. That is wrong action on their part, in my respectful opinion. Then Kapil Sanghvi again is asking whether default in disclosure of beneficial ownership under Companies Act will have any impact on Benami transaction. Kapil, you have asked a very, very good question. In my session on interplay of Benami law with other laws, I straight away cover this, that how now this law is going to affect other laws. And one of the issues is this, that whenever we will be making disclosures under this SBO concept, significant beneficial ownership concept, and if the significant beneficial owner is someone else because of the reason that he is owning the shares through someone else, acting through someone else, because of that he becomes significant beneficial owner, then he may be roped in into the capacity of beneficial owner under the PBPT Act also. If he is SBO because of the acting with concept, then he will not be beneficial owner. But if he is acting through, then he may be beneficial owner here, and the shareholder may be Benamidar under PBPT. And we can discuss in detail in next session if you want. But question is very good. We can have another session dedicated solely on interplay only. Then property purchased when son was minor. POA was father. Consideration was paid partly by the father and partly by other family members. No, I don't think here PBPT Act will come into picture, because there is no distinction between the real ownership and the legal ownership. Since there is not going to be the distinction, then I think it is not going to be distinction. Because what I believe, I will end, I think no more question is coming now. But I believe, sir, and if some question will again come, we will cover it up in the next session. Sir, what I am saying that what I believe, in fact, PBPT Act comes into picture. Just 1 second, if you allow me, let me take to the first. Yeah. PBPT Act comes into the picture when there is a difference between the legal ownership and beneficial ownership. So again, coming back to that original legislation 5,500 years back, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, wherever there is no concept of duality, where there is a singularity, no Benami. When there is duality, legal owner is different, beneficial owner is different. I am having the property, real owner is someone else. Then concept of Benami pitches into. That is a classic example of Benami. So long as there is no distinction, no Benami. So I think, my dear friends, my dear team, my dear organizers, I think I must convey, ample amount of gratitude for you to take up all these pains and efforts to organize this session. And I must thank to the audience for the wonderful and keen participation. But before I sign off, only one thing I would like to say, that the time has come to realign ourselves, as I said. So with the help of this law, our government is giving us one message, that how to live real life, right? So whatever I think from inside, I must portray myself outside in the similar fashion. Whatever I think is mine, I must portray that only as mine. Whatever I think is not mine, neither I think it should be mine, nor I should portray it to be mine. So whatever I am inside, I should be outside in the similar fashion. In other simple words, friends, get rid of Benami life and live real life. I think, thank you very much. And we can close the session.